Now, many of you may not know this, but drag queens actually have our very own language. This is true. So some of you might know one of the words in the drag queen language is fabulous. That's one that has made its way into mainstream culture. But what do you get when it is more than fabulous? More fabulous than fabulous. You get fierce. And what do you get when it is fiercer than fierce? You get sickening. So our next presenter, Linda Robinson, has a title for her Pecha Kucha presentation, and it is Could I Have Done That? But I don't think that's quite right. I'm going to give her her drag queen translation of her presentation. So here is Linda Robinson and her presentation, Oh No She Better Don't.
Okay, Linda? You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Okay, when considering a major life change or doing something huge in your life, it helps if you consider where you came from and your childhood dreams. Most of us have all kinds of huge visions and dreams in childhood that get socialized out of us. I grew up watching this show when I was 6, 7 years old, and I wanted adventure, I wanted a safari suit. I grew up in a family that considered childhood more like boot camp than summer camp. And where it wasn't super happy all the time, it definitely made us strong, and it made us be able to survive in lots of different conditions. And adventure was an escape. I chose a career that could take me anywhere in the world. I knew I was not going to wear this uniform for the rest of my life. And had an experience where a leadership teacher told me, you can do anything, don't be afraid of anything. If there's fear in your life, it's a fear of death, and you wear death on your shoulder. I did not want to be an old woman that sat and said, I wish I did it when I was young. So right out of college, I joined the Peace Corps, went and worked as a nurse in Africa where I wanted to be. Family wasn't planned, but it happened. And learned through that experience that doesn't get in the way. Learned to use more appropriate tools for our surroundings. And whenever there was question about whether we could continue doing this with a family, I remembered those words of if there's fear, it's fear of death, you wear death on your shoulder, and every time you're afraid, you turn to death and say, is it my time? Chose not to let children get in the way. I refuse to let children be human excuses for not attaining goals in life. So marched forward with continuing the career that I learned I wanted to do. Chose to bring them on adventures as well. When you're choosing a big change in life, the more people you involve in that change, the more difficult it becomes. You have to take on all their emotions as well. But other people in the world have children and families, and they're transportable, and kids too can learn from it. My kids didn't quite appreciate that I actually fed them on their hikes, but wanted to raise children that were strong and independent, and then so later in life did not have to worry about if I chose to go off again, that they weren't going to be able to take care of themselves. Find inspiration in odd places. This is a place actually for me where I decided there was going to be a major change. And now that when I look at that picture, I realize that business actually was a major life change for someone and was also a risk. And it's where I found inspiration. Spent some quiet time in meditation deciding about the adventure I was about to undertake. Because when people start questioning the change you're about to make, it helps if you're really solid in your convictions, because you're going to have to support them and stand by them, because often people are afraid of change and there's a lot of questioning. The actual leaving your job and friends is difficult, and that takes some planning, but again, that's why it's important to be firm in what you want to do. But it's wonderful to be able to carry other people's spirit with you, and when you do something brave like making a big change in your life, people support you. There was fear I never thought I would ever experience. Change can be really scary. And when you're in a situation where you're alone and don't speak the language, I thought a lot about that carrying death on my shoulder, asking if it's my day. If the answer's no, there's nothing to be afraid of. Find a tutor. There's always a mentor around that will help you get where you need to be. If you need skills, there's always someone around that will teach you those skills. You just have to be open and find them. And make sure that you're not afraid to tell people what you need. Once the adventure or whatever the changes gets going, there are incredible moments of joy when you realize that you might be making a difference and you're actually living that dream. Because to me, there's nothing more tragic than wishing you did it. This is as close as I could come to the safari suit. This is as close as I could come to that 6-year-old vision of where I wanted to be someday, in a wide open space with adventure. I don't look good in khaki anyway, so this was better. Yeah. And besides finding a mentor, it's wonderful to be a mentor. The relationships that you forge when you make a change in your life, it's scary and uncomfortable, but an entire world opens up to you, and to be open to new relationships is really incredibly enriching. And to be resourceful. To be with children who had about nothing, and to be able to help them. In this case, I was making cardboard wings for the airplane that they had carved out of a piece of wood, was incredibly satisfying. And find beauty in places where you don't expect. In a place that was full of despair, moments of beauty sustained me and can sustain you. I mean, there's times when you have to really grasp, when you think the entire decision was a complete mistake, that you find moments that carry you through. Learn to use tools that you never thought you'd be able to use. This laptop became my best friend, and I looked forward every Sunday to be able to go there and get out my stress and tell my story. That was a huge learning curve for me. And finally, tell your story. You never know what's going to come out of a new experience, and sharing your story with others, even if it's just a new restaurant, is incredibly gratifying. I didn't do too good on the time.
Sickening, wasn't it?